All right, now we're in secret cavern of silence. Welcome, everybody. It's time to open up the Emblem County Board of Commissioners informal work session for February 27th. It's about 1:35. Thanks, everybody, for being here. We'll start with, since we don't have a work session scheduled, we'll start with committee updates, and that's RIAC, the Road Improvement Advisory Committee Annual Report. And thank you very much for being here. Come on up. And we've got 10 minutes scheduled for this, so
We'll be quick and leave room
it's
for
a high
questions.
all right, thank you for coming.
Okay, I'm Adam Zabinski. I'm the chair of RIAC. Gordon Cook, vice chair, former chair. It's a very friendly group. We just kind of, oh, your turn.
Pass it around.
Just move it on. So I don't need to go into the purposes of RIAC and all that. What we really wanted to do this year is emphasize what's been done with the vegetation committee. Right, so if you have an opportunity to look through the annual report, we actually pulled out much of what the accomplishments for that specific committee during 2017 were. The reason is, with these things that have been done, it ultimately assists the county and specifically Public Works in identifying both native species and invasive species and come up with a mechanism to tackle them. We've been very fortunate in the last couple of years, and it looks like this year as well, to get interns to go out and do a lot of the research, basically the cataloging for where the things we want are and where some of the things we really don't want are. This last year, I don't have the thing in front of me, but they actually developed a card to give to the drivers of the various public work vehicles, so that as they're driving around doing their chores throughout the county throughout the year, they can help identify different things, hopefully avoid the ones that we want to protect. So that was the main thing that I wanted to emphasize this year. Most of what we've done otherwise is pretty much in keeping with what we do every year. I've got a little more dramatic this year with a couple of commissioners being involved in the destruction of the old Public Works building, which is...
Who will remain unnamed.
Remain unnamed, but we do have video. Funny how that is. We didn't need any audio for that. The video was quite complete in and of itself. Which fortunately there was no audio, so it eliminated the screaming as the building comes tumbling down on top of equipment drivers. So, but anyhow, one of the things Gordon wanted to put on, I'll switch over to that for the last part of our 10 minutes, is there's a lot with the soil and water.
Back, I can't remember what year it was, that there was an awful lot of animosity between soil and water and Public Works, and I decided to start going to soil and water meetings to bridge some gaps there, and huge gaps. And with the joint development agreement that John and Larry Oswald have come up with for sharing equipment, sharing resources and stuff, I thought that's what I wanted to get done, and I was really pleased to see the cooperation that there is now. And Stan has been a good bridge as well, and so the vegetation manager position that we're still talking about is I'm looking forward to, and get an awful lot of complaints about getting brush cut and that sort of thing, and it'd be nice to have a dedicated person that doesn't end up being a flagger all the time and the brush machine sits there. That's been a pet peeve of mine, is to have equipment and not have somebody operating it. So anyway, I'm real pleased with the cooperation that Soil and Water has been doing with the road department now. And as a director of Soil and Water, I get both sides of it. And so it's very fulfilling.
So at the end of this year, what we're hoping, once we get through the summer season, that with the interns and the work that we'll have, will be a long way towards, basically a GIS of where the species are, good and bad. And we have the interns that will be working on that through the year. Hopefully we'll get a position filled so that we'll have permanent oversight rather than, essentially it's us as volunteers that are doing it. It would be more efficient, I think, if we had full-time people engaged. And there's certainly a lot of engagement. That's always exciting when you're on any kind of a volunteer committee, and anything, quite frankly. And there's a lot of engaged folks in this whole process, so we're quite happy.
I think, as we saw in that report from outside vegetation, the identifying of both the native plant and the invasive species have been critical, but also helping us to define those areas that we can do something about the erosion on our roadsides. It's a very critical piece of that. So Susan took the lead on that with the interns last year, but having a full-time position dedicated to monitoring and that oversight is going to have very impactful, be very impactful on that. So I'm excited about the fact that we are making this connectivity between soil and water and the Public Works Department to see to it that we're properly managing our roadside. So this is really good, and hats off to Gordon. He has really jumped in and taken the lead on that. He hauls the blower for the straw blowing all over the county, trying to get people to use that to cut down on erosion. And Gordon's just an amazing partner, both on RIAC and Soil and Water. So
Well, another aspect of that partnership I see is that Public Works can really only operate in the right-of-way, whereas Soil and Water can reach out to landowners and through NRCS be able to get funding for various projects. So it really, really marries the two together in a more, I know the frustration, say, in drainage and trying to get water away from the road. Well, if you can't go off of the right-of-way and do something about it, you're trapped.
yeah.
And so Soil and Water has the ability and relationships to handle that aspect of it.
And the staffing at Soil
And
and
staff.
Water is getting up. We've
Right.
got some really great people going out working with the farmers and landowners to show them how to better take care of not only their property, because when that stuff's washing off there, in fact, there's a great article in the paper written by Maria talking about keeping the soil where it needs to be. So, these are all, we all have to participate in it. So anyway, thank you, Gordon.
Yeah.
There's been a long history of there being cooperation between individuals and groups that might have disparate perspectives on things. And RIAC and Vegetation Committee have reached out to people who don't necessarily agree, bring them in and incorporate those perspectives. And the same thing is happening here. And we have some amazing people who are serving on Vegetation Committee. I mean, they have real solid backgrounds in this, and on RIAC as well, and Soil and Water. So thank you for that. I have one question. How do you describe, or is there an actual interface between how we do our habitat conservation plan and your particular efforts with vegetation?
Well, there's a very small subcommittee that does at RIAC that deals with the habitat plan, and so I think we're going to be incorporating more of the habitat plan with vegetation management. It all ties together. No, Michael Hort has been phenomenal in her role in balancing these things, and she was the chairman when I came on the committee, and then I took over from her, and but
She
she's-
felt the chairmanship was too limiting. So she become more engaged.
Now she just comes and tells them what to do,
Yeah.
more things
Yeah.
get done.
Yeah, well, she's doing the things she enjoys.
Right.
Yeah.
And,
She's great.
And that she's passionate about, and,
Just so you know, I'm trying to steal her away to be on the board at YCAP, and she did show up to a meeting, so let that be a warning. I'll tell John.
There's no requirement that she couldn't remain if she took that.
Exclusivity, no, I don't.
So knowing her,
Knowing her, so
there's
just
still
do it.
3 hours in a day that
Right,
she sleeps, so she.
Yeah. thank you.
You know, as I looked at the 2017 accomplishments and the job you guys do and the job RIAC and vegetation, I'm just astounded looking at these accomplishments. I guess my only question is how the average citizen doesn't know like a lot of this is going on.
Right.
How do we tell our story, whether it's through like on our website, a feature story once a month or whatever on our website, just to let the public know
yeah.
what's really going on, because as I read through some of these, I've only been in office a little over a year. Some of them look pretty familiar, but then there are other things I didn't have things clue. So, you know, I just have to congratulate everybody on everything. It's kind of behind the scenes, nobody knows about it. You know, so.
The only way anybody would really know is if they got into the Public Works website and
Yeah.
mined
Mhm.
down and drilled down, because
Yeah.
we have our own little
Yeah.
button there that shows what we
And
have
that's,
going.
there's the issue.
And there's very
They
few
didn't write-
people.
But they have to
Yeah.
consciously look for it.
You have to be looking.
I promise you, our citizens know what we don't do.
Yeah.
No, I'll agree with that. It's hard to have something put on the web that says this is what we don't do.
And, you know, this last couple of weeks especially, I have had so many emails
I've
on,
had some.
from our citizens who are recognizing the hard work that's taking place out there. And so, you know, it does get recognized over time, but the native plants are, I think this whole cooperation between Soil and Water and RIAC has been tremendous in seeing to it that we are aware of and taking care of those, but also those identified as endangered, the marlet. We've got 22 spots in our county that we really have to monitor carefully, and it took a lawsuit to get us there, but we are there. And you know, that awareness level has gone a long way toward our roadside monitoring. So you know, it wasn't a pleasant thing when it was happening, but it certainly has had great results. So everybody's to be complimented on that.
Thank you for coming, we appreciate it.
On the plus side,
Right.
during the course of a year, a half dozen citizens came in to pitch their concerns to us. So when there are issues, they know how
They
to find
show,
us.
They know how
that's
to
right,
find
they
it.
show up at these issues.
Appreciate
It'd be
your
nice
work,
to have
and
some
thank you
people-
for coming.
It'd be nice to have
Thank you so
some people
much.
show up and
All
get
right.
having it.
Thanks, guys.
Betty was
All
one
right.
of those.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
Thank you for
Thank you.
coming,
Yeah.
appreciate it.
All right.
All right, up next is Silas Halloran Steiner. He is our Health and Human Services Director, who's going to give us a department update. Thank you, Silas, for coming.
Hi, Silas.
How
Hello.
are you? Thanks, guys.
I'm well.
Thank you.
Sorry I'm running a couple minutes late.
That's
I
okay.
just saw your message.
Perfect.
Somehow I
Timing.
thought it was 1:50, but I think I might have
No, you're
got it
good.
wrong.
Perfect.
All right.
Silas, how are you?
Good. I'm well. I have a board update, obviously, and then I think we're going to go into executive session, right? So it's part of my update related to one thing. Couple things just that are happening, good FYI for you to know what's going on. Today and tomorrow we have our Oregon Health Authority certification state audit that happens every 3 years. They give us a COA, certification of approval, to operate a community mental health program. So they are looking at charts and talking to consumers and families and advocates and meeting with community partners and in our personnel files and looking under every stone or rock that they can find to make sure that we are getting quality assurance feedback from the state. So we'll do that, and they'll find some things that we could probably improve on, and then we'll make those corrections. It's usually a pretty positive experience to go through. tomorrow Commissioner Sterrett is meeting with the lead reviewer, Tamara, and I'll join you as well. So she's the representative of the local mental health authority for the review process, but then whatever they give us as findings, we'll bring back to the full board. So that's happening. Just wanted people to be aware of it. I think you might have seen it in email form. We're also getting ready to move the main Veterans and Developmental Disabilities team and also our utilization management team and some admin functions from the electronic health record team over to the Kirby site. Paul and I were just talking about it, we are 1 week delayed from what our optimal move timeline was. There's been some flooring, just delays around the install on the flooring specifically. Not stuff that was predictable. Paul and I would have a chuckle about it. I won't go into great detail here. But our contractors are working hard. Sully, who we contracted to do the main site, has really been fabulous to work with, according to Paul. And Paul wanted me to, again, acknowledge that Shane and Joe and the teams, from a support standpoint, have done a great job to get us to this point. So there's a very detailed move plan in place, and we are executing it. I have a little more in space I'll touch on later. Did want to let you know that there have been several confirmed cases of pertussis, mainly in the Newburgh area. We've been working our communicable disease team at Public Health and also working with the State Health Authority on messaging and working with parents and how to walk through that process to keep students and parents as safe as possible through this time period. We've also done a notice to the medical providers across the county, as we normally do around these things, just to keep them on the lookout for signs and symptoms, which they normally would be, but it's a little bit more of a alert since we do have several confirmed cases and 2 more that are pending confirmation but suspected.
Have we had any infant deaths in Yadkin County as a result?
Well, we did earlier in the year have some confirmed flu deaths, which I know was reported on, but I don't have an answer related specifically to pertussis. I can get that information and give an email back to the 3 of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll do that. A couple other things. We have been working with the CCO, our coordinated care organization, to develop a consultant psychiatry model that will be a pilot to move out to some of the medical clinics that are larger, like Physicians Medical Center or Virginia Garcia, to help their teams, their primary care teams, do a better job and feel more confident and supported in the really high needs, high complexity behavioral health patients that they manage. So sometimes there are people with high mental health and high physical health that they don't feel as well prepared from a medical standpoint to manage. And we have a medical director who was the consulting psychiatrist for the Legacy Health System for a number of years, 5 hospitals in the metro area. Her name is Dr. Shirley Roth, and she's an expert really in this area of doing psychiatric consultation. So the model is going to be to place, with CCO-funded positions, place some additional well-trained postmasters or maybe PsyD level trained clinicians in those clinics, and then they will help bring the most difficult cases to Dr. Roth, and Dr. Roth will work on a contract basis to help do the consultation. And then from that point, we'll understand if we need to transfer care possibly into our safety net service or keep them in those clinics, which will be our goal most of the time. But because that's an emerging model, I just wanted to let you know that work's happening. It's exciting, and I'm also going to do a contract amendment to have the CCO pay us for Shirley's time on an hourly basis. I have a contract amendment. I let Commissioner Sterrett and Laura know that that's coming, but there's 2 other things in the contract amendment that'll come with it.
And is that above and beyond what she does for us?
It is, it will be different work, but it's not new hours on top of her existing contract. So I'm carving out more of her administrative time, and then they're going to pay us for that. Yeah, she's been in that phase. It's not retirement because she works really hard for us, but it's not the full-time plus job she was doing when she was full-time at Legacy. So her contract with us is 16 hours a week at this point, and then she sometimes does a little bit more on the phone and some of the times when she's not on site. And then the last thing is I'm, I think, joining at least one of you that I know in DC next week as part of the National Association of Counties Conference. There's a affiliate, the National Association of County Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities Directors. NACDD is what they call it, NACDD. Yeah, terrible, right?
Yes.
Anyhow, I'll be out there. I've been to that conference 3 times, I think. It's a annual legislative
He
conference.
surprised me last year. I was standing
That's
outside
right.
the door and I turned around and there was Silas.
So you should surprise me somewhere this year.
I just may.
Yeah, it's a good conference. We get a lot of interesting policy updates. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the world and in the nation right now that is top of mind for anyone dealing with behavioral health, obviously mental health in the schools, and how we're supporting our students and our families. It'll be one part of the conference. I'm actually speaking on a panel along with someone from Virginia and someone from Kansas on value-based payment reform, how to get our purchasing of our care and our services more targeted towards health outcomes we want and less on the individual services we provide. So I was asked to do that along with 2 other states that aren't ACA expansion states. So I'll be doing that and also just be a member of going to meet with our delegation and do some of those things to think about what we're doing out in Oregon and keep us in mind when they
So
set
what are you
policy.
gonna do in your spare time back there?
Well, that's the second part of the trip, but the first part is the all business. But yeah.
A lot of business.
Yeah, so that's all I had for today.
Do we want to go into executive session?
Let me get ready. There's something
Ready
you,
for that now?
yes.
Yeah,
I
okay.
got a small agenda today, it appears.
So the Yale County Board of Commissioners will now meet in executive session for the purpose of discussions with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions, or to allows the commissioners to meet in executive session for this purpose pursuant to ORS 192.6602E. Representatives of the news media and designated staff should be allowed to attend. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced, and no final decisions will be made in executive session. At the end of this session, we'll return to open session and welcome folks back into the room.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, so Christian, do you want to?
Yeah, we're back in open session, and there were no final decisions made in executive session, but the consensus of the board is continued to stand.
And if I could have the appraisals, commissioners, back, I'll get it from you, from your office.
Okay.
This afternoon.
So we're back, and so since Silas is here, let's go ahead and address, let's address a couple of the items that are on our preliminary consent agenda. And that would be the item number 3, which is the director holds. And I think those are pretty self-explanatory. We've done those. Those are pretty boilerplate every year. And the next would be item number 5. Does anybody have any questions about the contract with HHS and EMDR Consulting?
I just have a question on number 3, Madam Chair. I'm not familiar with this kind of program. When we talk about the director hold about other designated individuals, I mean, who are we talking about as far as, because to me, other designated individuals is kind of loose.
They're named.
They're named in the board order.
Are they named in the board?
Mhm,
Yeah.
Along with all their credentialing and the
Okay.
requirements to do the
All
scope.
right, that's fine.
And a date. That's-
And as a reminder, that's both for our contractor, the George Fox University PsyD students, so the postmasters doctoral level students, as well as our master's level trained
Okay, well, that
clinicians.
answers that. That answers the question.
Okay, so any questions about item number 5? Any questions about item number 6? All right, well, very good. I think we're good, Silas. So I'll see you tomorrow morning.
Yeah, 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
Yep,
And
thanks.
I'll see you
Thanks,
next
Silas.
week.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you.
One of us is gonna surprise the other one
That's
somewhere.
right.
Sneak
And
up
I
behind the-
subscribe.
I'm gonna
It
sneak
might
up on
surprise
you.
either one of you, and neither one of you may end up coming back.
Thank you, Silas.
See you
Thanks,
later.
Silas.
All right, so let's move on to item E, which is the preliminary consent agenda. It looks like everybody's okay with that, so we'll go ahead and move on to item F, which is the non-consent agenda items.
I've asked me to call Brian to have him come over, so you may want to move to number 2 since Ken is here.
All right, so item number 2, which is consideration of a request by Waste Management of Oregon, Inc. for renewal of their franchise with the county to collect solid waste in the unincorporated portions of north, central, and western Yamaha County, excluding the area of the unincorporated county currently served by Waste Management Newburgh. Thanks for coming.
So I wanted to correct the agenda for just a minute and state that the email that I sent to Carrie, or to Carolyn, actually it's for Recology Western Oregon. So it's not Waste Management. Waste Management handles Newburgh and Dundee area, and then Recology Western Oregon handles the rest.
So
So
we'll change.
this is the renewal of their franchise.
So item number 2, we have consideration of request by
Recology.
Recology
Yes.
instead of Waste Management, okay?
Mhm.
I just have a couple comments or
Mhm.
questions. When, how long on their renewal of their franchise, normally, is it a 5-year franchise, 10-year
It's
franchise?
10.
It's a 10-year
It's
franchise?
10. But anytime during that 10-year period, they can take the opportunity to renew, and then it's good, and they do that to keep a hold of it. And then they have the opportunity, then it's good for 10 years.
Okay, what happens if we decide not to renew?
You can't.
You know,
Basically.
They can
Let me-
choose, they can
let me-
choose
I-
not to.
But I can show you, well, you can. You can, and I printed this off for you guys, just to give you an idea of what would be necessary to refuse a franchise or a license, and they would have to do all 1 through 4, B, and then on the back is also information on if that action was chose to suspend, modify, revoke, or refuse, the processes behind that, and that's under our solid waste ordinances. But they, when reviewing their whole file, they haven't done anything wrong. We don't have any reason to revoke or not renew.
And those, I remember when I first came on board, it was, my question was, you know, again, is the inherent fairness or unfairness of a franchise agreement that gets renewed or renewed, and it really is very strict. And yet there are really good reasons why the renewal is for 10 years, because you don't just start out and shut down an operation like Waste Management or Recology. So
It's a profound amount of money.
and it's
Yeah.
very, it's protective of the consumer.
It is, it is.
When was the last time?
The last time that they renewed it was 3 years ago, and their very first time that they renewed it, so it was in 2015, and I picked up, and I have a board order number back at the office as to when that was done. Their original was, they've had it since 1972, February 28th, 1973. In my massive amount of research I've been doing as of lately, I found that one.
So the last one was renewed 3 years ago, so basically what this does, it starts a new 10-year period.
It does.
That's a-
It does.
for this.
Now, from what I understand, Waste Management doesn't quite do it like that, but Recology does. Waste Management waits till about 8-9 years into theirs, and then they renew theirs, and they were previously owned by somebody else anyway, so.
But the process is pretty arduous. It's pretty much the same every time they renew, so.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
so,
and they've given us everything that we required and more.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really a big back, I understand, like, the chair, I understand why you want to do 10 years. I'm really not a big backer of a 10-year franchise, but I would prefer 5 years, but I understand because of the difficulty of that, why it's 10 years. Don't mind, but I understand why it's.
Yeah,
5,
and I
so.
didn't either until you hear
Yeah.
about, wow, these guys are making considerable investments in a very large operation.
Well, I had the same question,
Mhm.
which is why I went and did the research.
Right.
Yes,
When was the
So-
last time that we amended or updated their license agreement?
3 years ago.
Same time we
Yes.
renewed the franchise?
Yes.
Because the ordinance talks about two different things.
Yes,
One is
and we
the
did it- they
franchise
did it at
and
the
the
same
license
time.
agreement.
Yep.
So we'd be amending the license agreement as well to
No,
also-
not at this time. This is currently, it wasn't exactly the same time, the same year.
So the
Okay.
Yeah, I'm-
license is good for how long?
That's why I was wondering.
Yeah,
if we
and I'll
needed to
pull
take
that
some
one, I'll
vote.
look at that one a little further onto here, but I believe the last time we did it was the same time too. It was further in the year because in April, they're going to present their franchise fee increased to me at that time. And so I've been doing research on that, and I know I ran across that, and that's where I came across they had actually renewed that license at the same time.
It's good to check, and the other thing is, it's good to think about if we wanted to make any changes or
At that
negotiate
licensing time.
provisions of the license agreement.
Now,
Now might be a good time to do it if they're asking us to further renew and extend their franchise.
So, they're requesting a renewal at this time,
A franchise.
okay? And yet there's still 7 years left on their last renewal.
Yes.
So,
But now it will roll over and be 10.
that's
Yeah.
what I understand. So,
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, do we have to jump through the same hoops to refuse to renew at this point in time? And give them that additional 7 years?
Oh, that's good. I think we have to honor it for 10.
We are currently on a 10-year.
Yes,
They're
we have to
asking-
honor it for another 7.
Right, but, so they jump in any time, and if I'm reading this, we really have a hard time not
Yes,
renewing
absolutely.
it, which automatically extends, so, basically, they've got us locked up forever if you read this correctly.
Unless
Not that
they
I'm-
made
not
a
that I'm
violation.
saying- Yeah, not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with them, but to your point, Commissioner, I know there is a large investment to develop a company like this, but there's also a significant revenue stream that comes with having this in place. And so I just,
Well, my whole question initially was that the same thing, is that they basically have a monopoly.
Mhm.
But the other, first of all, there would have to be sort of a dereliction of duty. They would
Yes.
have to willfully
Yes.
not be owning up to their part of the
Mhm.
contract. And then the other thing is that how many people or how many entities would be able to get up to speed and to be able to bankroll an enterprise like this. The other thing is, it's in the county's best interest to guarantee that this is a function that will be provided by an outside entity. So I kind of remember meeting with Waste Management about this, saying, I don't know that this is inherently fair, because it's creating a monopoly. And then when you think about it, what are the options if we don't have this guaranteed and locked up?
Well, and then putting on my other hat of being an environmental health inspector, that's a concern to me as well too. I mean, if we're stop being able to provide garbage service, then is that a detriment to the health and environmental health of Yamhill County? So we have to think past the money, past the monopoly, and think about the health, the public health and environmental health.
Yeah.
Because then we could see nuisances, there's vectors for disease control that wouldn't be able to be controlled. So by continuing to have a service that provides that for us without any lapse in service,
Exactly.
also says we're not gonna have some health concerns.
Yeah.
We're not gonna have to deal with rats. We're not gonna have to deal with some other things that come up that are environmental health concerns.
So it's a government sanctioned monopoly.
Yeah, pretty much.
You're exactly
Pretty much.
right.
Really a monopoly?
Yeah.
I mean, there is a process in place whereby if citizens are
Sure.
complaining or if they're not performing,
Right.
the license and the franchise can be revoked, or if, they're not meeting the terms, it might not be renewed, in which case you would go through a solicitation process and you would let
Yes.
bidders come in, and then you would hopefully
Right.
be able to replace them with someone who could still provide the service. So you wouldn't have the lapses and you wouldn't have these unfortunate things
Sure.
happening. But
And under
in that sense,
714,
it's sort
they
of
make
a,
mention
it's
of
a
that.
sanctioned long-term contract that will continue,
Mhm.
but there are good policy purposes for why.
For that.
Sure.
Just
How long is the license?
It's a franchise.
Ten-year license also?
That one I have to look up. That
Similar
one I'm
with our
not
other
sure.
That was
of.
my
Okay.
question.
Yeah,
Yes.
because since we have.
Like what?
the ASA, they're
Oh, sure.
they're essentially performance-based. Now, as long as they continue to meet the requirements, then their contracts will continue, in theory, for an indefinite
Live
amount of time.
forever.
Mhm.
I guess
In
now,
perpetuity.
Yeah.
my only question is, number one, since you have to look it up, is what is the license, how long is the license for? And since we still technically have 7 years under our current franchise,
Mhm.
it seems it would make sense to me to, unless there's some technical reason, to address both the franchise and the license at the same time in this same month, so I guess it depends on when the actual license is up and how long it's for.
So let me do research on that one, and I will get back to you before. So Thursday I will be in school. I have to go to Seaside, so I will not be here for formal. Did you want to readdress this the next week?
Do you wanna set this over for 1 week?
And that may give me a little bit more time to come back to you with a better
Is that a
answer.
deal breaker?
Well, it doesn't look like
No,
we're
it's not
gonna,
really
I don't
a-
think we have a chance to do a deal breaker, and I don't think we really.
No, I mean,
No.
for us doing this on Thursday.
No, to me, it's not.
So that
it's
could
not
be
a
an email.
deal.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
That
not
could
a
be an
deal breaker, I
email,
just
right?
like to know
But
the
keep in mind,
differences.
if there was anything in the license agreement that we were interested in approaching Ecology about renegotiating or changing, we are in a better negotiating position before we have renewed their franchise agreement than after.
Do you
So
wanna
we
wait
should do
then?
licensing before then.
Well,
We can do them-
we could
do
just
them- we
put
can
it
look at them
off.
and
We
see.
can put it off
Thursday?
since there's
That-
no.
I think that
For
makes
the
sense to me.
next
Okay.
Thursday, and that would give me time, because.
Sure.
Because you're
Let's
not
do
gonna
that.
be
Oh,
here
I'm
next
not gonna be here
Thursday.
anyway, but I'd still like to have the information.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay, so we'll
So
do
we'll
that.
put this over for
We'll-
next.
for next Thursday. Thank
Okay.
you.
Right.
yeah,
Appreciate it.
yeah.
Kim, we can take a look too.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks,
We can
Kim.
take a look at
Good
that.
job.
Okay, and then I'm gonna give you a call too, I have some other questions about parametrics later.
All right,
Good job.
thank you. Thanks for
Okay.
coming. All right, we'll move on
All right, hot
to
seat guy, you're gonna talk for
Brian.
yourself now.
Brian Van Bergen.
I have every piece of paper you sent me, you can talk for yourself.
Brian Van Bergen will have he's here to talk about a request for position authority. Thank you, Brian, for coming.
Thank you very much for having me. It's relatively short and sweet. You walk into the clerk's office and typically you will see 4 people in workstations. Today, that is budgeted for 3 senior office specialists and 1 office tech. What we're proposing is to transform one of those senior office specialists into something new for our office that would, in essence, do all of those functions plus a few more. So traditionally, when you review our budget, you would see quite a bit of extra help, and there's election board workers and extra help, 2 different buckets of cash. The extra help has been a couple of folks that have managed the election board workers, contacted volunteers to do drop boxes and that sort of thing. So what I'm proposing is to rope some of those duties into this new position. So we're not adding anyone, we're just taking the opportunity of an empty position to morph it into something different. So it does cost more to do that, but not much, because we'll be reducing some of that we would have spent on the extra help line item.
So bottom line for your budget, what's the net gain?
15.
It is,
That was 9,700.
something like that,
Additional cost,
yeah, per year.
yeah, per year, 9,789.
And you're asking for the addition of a program coordinator and the deletion of a,
We would be getting rid of a senior office specialist position, so that's 1 full FTE, and adding this new program
That would be
coordinator,
higher.
which would be
So-
at 1 FTE. So it wouldn't be,
Same FTEs, you're just gonna have an increase in the cost
Right.
for that additional FTE
Right.
of approximately 9,700 a year.
Brian, someplace in there you made the comment that after a period of time, you looked good about that position potentially reverting back to a senior office specialist. I think I read
that's
that.
quite possible, right.
Possible, but probably not.
More, I would say probable.
Probable.
Probable, yeah. One of the biggest objectives with this is preparing for the transition of some more
Yeah.
retirements. So we want to bolster some of our staff positions and work some transition time between some new people coming into our office and taking advantage of those that are leaving with a longer stretch of time with those people working together.
Do you see going forward that this is going to be a net saving, because when you have those retirements, you're going to have somebody who's coming off the bench?
I would not be surprised if 3 years from now, we're actually saving money. Yeah. Yeah.
Because retirees are making more than this.
Yeah.
well, typically we do see departments doing this. They'll establish an interim position knowing that a key person in their staff is gonna retire, so they'll establish an interim sort of transitional position so that a person could get trained up in preparation if they'll take the position when that retiree does retire. And then they'll often then eliminate the position that was established for that purpose and go back to the original staffing. Sometimes not, it really depends on the needs of the department.
And ours is rather goofy in that this person, if we select the right person, this person could migrate into the department, or not the department head, but the chief deputy position, or the county clerk. The county clerk is term limited, so you'll be booting me out the door, and it would be very nice to have trained someone to take on this role. So
Let's take us 4 years to train you so far.
5, 6, it'll take that long. to
6,
spend.
yeah.
So this person, if we do it right, if we select the right person, could jump into either one of those roles.
And we did talk about the normal practices to wait until the beginning of the fiscal year. We usually do this through the budget process, but because of some of the key training dates that are taking place and the May primary, Brian and I agreed that it was better to do this now rather than wait, because we want those training impacts to take place now.
If at all possible.
One thing I read through all this, Brian said,
Sorry.
I do, no, yeah, no, but I that's why I made that comment, because for a position authority, the way that Brian laid out all the information, the facts he gave and everything, made it very easy to follow what the impact was gonna be and how it was gonna impact the financial area and his position. So Brian, thanks for doing a good job on that. But I'd have to say that we go ahead and move now, not wait till the first John. We approve this now, whether that's something we want to add to the consent agenda or not. Leave it up, so.
It's consent agenda.
Yeah. And since Brian's here, I was at corporate coffee this morning, and Brian's name came up in very positive light. The intern program that Jody started a few years ago and is now really morphing into something very large. Brian was very instrumental in the beginnings of that and is still very active in it. So Jody was pointing that out to the group today, what an important piece Brian was to that. So I just want to thank you again for making the county look good.
Thank you, Brian. We appreciate it, and we know you're going to be busy in the weeks and months ahead, so anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
All right.
Brian.
Thank you.
Brian.
We have next item 3, which would be the consideration of amendment number 1 to an agreement between Yamhill County and Strategic Economic Development Corporation, SEDCOR, of the Mid-Willamette Valley, and that's for Board Order 18-26. So,
Commissioners, this is just to move the first payment for SEDCOR to the month of March. They didn't want to take a payment for January and February because they hadn't staffed up yet, so this will just move the calendar forward 2 months.
I do.
And extends the
2 months.
Contract.
2 months on the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So if you're okay with that, that
Consent
could go to
Consent agenda? All right.
Then you have the memberships for,
Yes. This is not on the agenda, but we have the recommendation of the appointment of Luke Westfall to the RIAC Subcommittee, Roadside Vegetation Management Technical Advisory Committee. The members of RIAC, beginning of February, agreed that Luke Westfall should be recommended for appointment to the Vegetation Management Technical Advisory Committee, and they just wanted our approval. So John Phelan is recommending that Luke be appointed to a 2-year term. So if we can put that on the consent agenda.
and there was a second one. Yeah, but, yeah.
And the next is to recommend the reappointments of, to the Technical Advisory Committee, and that's Gordon Cook and Michael Ward and Tony Roos. And then members of the Roadside Vegetation Technical Advisory Committee, whose terms expired on 11/17 and who want to serve another 2-year term, are Michael Ward, Susan Aldrich Markham, Dave Hansen, Larry help me with this, I never,
For you.
boy, I never do it right. Kareem Sturgeon, Mark Huff, Vern Holm, and Vern's affiliation to be changed to Coordinator, Western Invasive Network. So John is also recommending that we appoint these members. Okay, to move it on to consent?
Consent agenda.
All right.
For me.
Do we have anything else? Nothing else on our agenda, but we can move to commissioner updates.
I'd like to be appointed to the Western Invasive Network. That sounds kind of cool.
Sounds important, doesn't it?
Invade
Some
another
invasive.
country.
I don't know, yeah.
So commissioners, your updates.
Well, I guess I'll go ahead and start. I was supposed to meet early next week with Jerry at VSO, but we put that off a couple of weeks because being that they're just getting ready to move and then moving wasn't the most convenient time, so we're gonna wait till they're all situated in their new digs in the Kirby Street building before we meet. I thought I'd bring up just a little piece of information that I thought was really interesting from our last EBDMI meeting. That it really didn't tell anything we didn't already do, and I think Tom and everybody else is doing a great job in putting for DAR and putting the stats together. But as I looked at all the information and the demographics that for recidivism, 83% are white, 81% are single, 73% are unemployed, 78% are male, and then 83% have a high school or less, don't either have a high school diploma or less than a high school education. So, if you look at this compared to all the demographics, this really tells about the kind of people we have coming through our system that, for the most part, they're white, single, unemployed, males with less than a high school graduation. And why I
Which
thought
department
that,
was this? I'm sorry for that.
pardon me?
Which department, or which
This
service
is
is this?
EBDMI, this is the DAR.
Okay.
And what I thought was interesting is we talked about that a little bit. It may take, in talking to Jessica, it may take change a little focus on a couple of programs we have, because they're putting together enough stats now and demographics. They know that they may be more focused targeting. We can go on with this with certain areas, but it's things that both Tom and Ian have put together have just been just amazing. So that I thought was from DEBMI, that was just very, very telling. Let's see, on the 16th of June, it'll be coming formal on the 16th of June, and I'll send out something or put something in the folder. There will be a full-day veteran seminar. We'll be visiting a lot of the veterans facilities in Wasco County and the Dalles. That's being organized by Wasco County. I'm been in touch with a couple of the Marion County commissioners. They have the Second Chance program where it gives people that are incarcerated a second chance to work in businesses and everything to get them hired. So I'm going to be taking part in that. I think there's 6 commissioners and a whole lot of other people involved in that. Let's see if I have anything else here. And I think for the most part, and then also, and Andy Smith is arranging for that one from AOC for the visit for the VA and the Dalles. And then they're still trying to work on a date, and I talked to the sheriff again about when all the sheriffs will be available in the 5 counties and what commissioners want to go on a tour of Norcor and sit down and talk with their governing body and go through the good things they've done, the bad things they've done, and different things they've done for regional facilities. So as soon as we can get all the sheriffs together at one time, and a lot of the commissioners together, that will be, I'll let you know as soon as that's good. That's all that I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Premazich?
Yes, as I reported last week, still working on countywide tourism project. We have expanded that task force considerably with a meeting scheduled for the 9th to map out a larger symposium on the 21st where we're going to invite as many stakeholders as we possibly can get. Right now, the location of that will be the library, the meeting room there at the library for the symposium. But we're trying to get all of the cities and various entities that are involved in tourism to look at this as a broad and necessary part of our economic development. And Jeff Knapp from Visit McMinnville is helping to spearhead this along with the remnants of Travel Yamhill Valley. Veronica and Melissa and Cheryl are the three remaining. Have made arrangements with Online Mac since Tour Yamhill County is somewhat dissolved and out of money. The website is going to be taken down, and Online Mac has agreed to host that website during this interim period until we see where it's going to go. So,
Do you know, Commissioner, does, because I heard this last week, does both the publications and the website, that the URL, the name of the website is owned by a media company that Melissa worked with out of Bend?
That is all being resolved.
Okay.
Evidently, there was a substantial overpayments made during the course of their contract. So anyway, Melissa's working on that and working with Kathy at Online Mac to make this transition at least on an interim basis.
Yeah,
So
and I think that whatever comes out of this new entity or however we do it, it's real important that we keep the domain name and everything itself,
that was
here in Yamhill County, not some company out of Bend, Oregon Media or whatever it is.
Yeah. No, we're working really hard to try and maintain the integrity of Travel Yamhill Valley, and however that evolves is yet to be seen, but the stakeholder involvement has grown considerably, and so the task force will, on the 9th, we're going to finalize the plans for the 21st, and invitations are being developed. Melissa's designing an invitation to get out. Anyway, there's a
And the
lot of
3-hour one on the 21st, that's at the one you said was at the library.
library.
Now, how does that dovetail with the transit lodging, countywide transit lodging tax that
Well, the paying for a Travel Yamhill County entity, however that evolves, is going to take some type of revenue stream. And so that's part of what this task force is looking at. How, if we don't have a transit tax, how do we pay for this? If we are looking at that, who are the players and who's willing to make that happen? But right now, the process is to engage stakeholders.
And then discuss the transit lodging
And then
tax.
discuss the transit law, or discuss whatever it's gonna take. We've put down what we think would be a reasonable budget. And that's the thing that people are playing with now and looking at and deciding whether or not there's any interest. And if there is, then how do we move forward with it? So
And that would be a ballot measure.
that would have to be a ballot measure if it's countywide. So nothing is happening on that front
Yeah.
until we put together a broader task force. The
Okay.
very earliest that we could do anything like that would be November, the general. And I don't even know if it does become an issue, that's the earliest it could be on the ballot, so.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, anything else?
Oh, and yes, I did have some conversation with Chad from Sedcor, and he's gonna come on the 20th and give us an update on the hiring of the person. He has made arrangements that that person will be housed at MEVP in Jody's office. So we're gonna have a real good working relationship there, and That person will be local, working for Sedcor, but be housed here in Yamhill County. And so anyway, on the 20th at our work session, or our informal, Chad's gonna come and just give us I told him to allow about 15 minutes to give us an update on where he is and what's going on. So
Thank you,
I want to
Commissioner.
make you aware of that.
Excellent, thank you. Be good to hear what you're
And I will
doing.
be gone next week, just
Okay,
be back there, trying to see what's happening that's affecting counties. I serve on 2 of NACO's committees, so I'll be back there with the legislative session to see if we can't move some of our policy decisions forward.
thank you for making that trip. Thank you. Couple of updates, we're still working on our situation with the Dayton foreclosed properties. We're in discussions with the city and talking about some of their proposals and our options, and we'll bring that to the board when we have something that's more fleshed out. Commissioner, thank you for meeting Dave and Kay over there at the Lafayette 14th Street house. At this point, we're waiting for a proposal, some suggestions on what they might do with it. They're very interested in it, and that would be something we'd have to discuss what we're going to wind up doing as far as how do we make that transfer/sale. I think my minimum requirements are, I would like to see that every single one of these houses is sold for at least back taxes. We don't make it just too many, handoffs. And so we're waiting for that. And the other thing in that quarter, I contacted the Housing Authority, and they've got some really good programs on foreclosure avoidance. And our assessor, Derek Wharf, has agreed to put inside just send out a mailer letting people know who are really in danger of foreclosure. They've got some options. They can be referred to legal assistance if they don't have the money. They'll work with the county, financial assistance, options on whether they should leave their home. And I want to say thank you to Christian for the work he's done on some of this. So anyway, it's going to be easier for people to know that they have options if they do face foreclosure. So I'm grateful that our county's been willing to work on that. And the other thing is, I saw in the AAA magazine that Dayton is featured, so that was kind of nice. And they did a nice article on Dayton. And as Silas mentioned, tomorrow we meet with the state on their recertification for our community mental health programs. And I think that's all I have.
And Dayton is being recognized, COSA, which is the consortium of school administrators. COSA, yeah. They are planning their annual meeting in Dayton at the Innovation Center there. They're going to have their annual dinner there to celebrate what Dayton has been doing with CTE. So I think that's quite an honor, a statewide organization of that size, descending on Dayton to celebrate that program that came out of the innovation program that we've been working on for the last 3 years. So anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. At this time, we'll adjourn today's informal session at